I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone. I will now read from the Open Public Meeting Statement. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws, 1975, be advised that notice of this meeting was made posting on the bulletin board, but I'm not sure if it was Town Hall. Do you know?
22 East Willow.
I'm sorry?
It's at 22 East Willow.
22 East Willow, and serving the officially designated newspapers. A notice stating that this meeting would take place in this location, 434, what's the address? Milburn Avenue? Okay. At 7:30 p.m. on May 1st, 2025. And please forgive me, this is new to everybody here today, so thank you. Roll, please.
Yes. Allison Camp.
Here.
Elizabeth Wanga.
Here.
Christine Best. Here. Venkatesh Chapalavada. Robert Frankel.
Here.
Great. Meeting minutes. The minutes of the April 3rd, 2025 meeting have been distributed to the commissioners. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second. Am I allowed?
Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved. Memorializations, application number 574, 121 Highland Avenue. It was Harry and Talia Gross. Application number 597, 417 Wyoming Avenue, John and Patricia Mueller. And application number 599, 17 Forest Drive, Brett and Wendy Prager. Do I hear a motion to approve the memorializations as listed from the April 3rd, 2025?
So moved.
Second?
Yes.
Perfect. Roll, please.
Allison Camfield.
Yes.
Elizabeth Wanga.
Yes.
Christine Best.
Yes.
Venkatesh Chapalavada. Robert Frankel.
We'll skip it.
Yes.
Great. And just for the record, Van Cat has just joined us, so thank you very much. Our first advisory review is application number 608, Taylor Park Gateway, 100 Main Street, block number 804, lot number 10. It's a key contributing property, which I'm going to leave that out as of right now, but it is a contributing property to our town. This is a referral application, and it's for the Main Street entrance and landscape improvements at the park. So, not sure who we have here to speak on that. Great.
Will Suter from Speed Architectural Group.
Wonderful. You want to come on up and be sworn in? Wonderful.
Hi, can you state your name for the record, please?
Will Suter,
And can you spell your last name?
Sewter.
Okay, and do you swear the testimony you're going to provide tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Please.
Excellent.
Also, we have that chalkboard. Do you want to, should we? Okay, perfect. Okay.
So a brief history of what happened was Speed Architectural Group was hired to do the design improvements of the Milburn Avenue front entrance, Taylor Park. And we provided, you might want to switch. Yep. We worked very closely with the town of Milburn. We learned the history about it, the importance of this park, and tried to tie in many different factors through the history of this importance of this park. One of them being the main elm tree that's been out there, and understanding this park is just celebrated, just past its centennial, historical, date of history for this. We tried to tie in a lot of the connections through the entirety of the community, tried to modernize some of the site amenities that were brought in, and tried to, like I said, create little Easter eggs that we brought in and tied into a lot of the elements through the park itself. Some of them being the stonework along the walls that you could see are going to match the stonework at the Bauer Community Center, so that creates a nice tie-in there. The pavement, we were tied into a lot of the improvements that are throughout the community along the corners at the Main Street and Milburn Avenue. We're including a logo of the seal that would be imprinted into the pavement itself, providing a historical kiosk that provides the historical element and the history of the park itself, tying into lighting site amenities that would tie into the new lighting that's going on in Taylor Park as well, modernizing some of the benches and trash cans that are throughout your community to bring them up to a little bit of a higher quality, but to the average pedestrian that would pass by would not think anything differently than, they would almost look the same. Some of the things that actually we tied to with both the trash can and the benches themselves are little emblems that almost have both a flower / mill wheel look to it. And that's to tie in both the Rose Garden itself, the significance of that, as well with the history of the mill wheel that's going on with the historical significance of not only your town, but also the site of the park itself. You can also see behind some of the pillars themselves are mill wheels, again, tying into a historical aspect that is a feature of the town and an importance of it. We are replicating the right there, the plaque that is on the commemorative rock in front of the elm tree, again, tying in significance of surrounding the park, bringing in people that enter this park, opportunities to learn a little bit of the history about it, read a little bit about it, and also have that, the drawing into of the park that when you read these signs, you really understand what's happening with the historical significance of this area. A lot of this was discussed with both the town of Milburn, with Alex and Maeve and Tim, and understanding, what we were looking for to improve it. One thing that we did always want to let people know is this project itself is probably going to be a multi-phase, approach to improvements of the park. What Spiesel was hired to do was just the entrance to the park, not touch the park itself, not touch any of the Rose Garden, but really just take the frontage of the street of Milburn Avenue and really about like 20, 25 feet into the park. So in no ways will we really be disturbing any of the Rose Garden, any of the features of itself. It's really just the entrance itself and creating a new segue from the street into the park.
Okay. Alex, you think if you propped it up on the chair, would that be easier for you? Maybe? There you go. So do you have anything else? Is that, sorry. Yeah.
How does the, actual Rose Garden space look, or are you not touching anything?
Not touching anything.
Anything, it's just the front.
We stopped, basically, we have a new ramp that's going to be, and I'll point it out, I'm sorry. Right here. That new ramp is really just a ADA access into the park. And once we hit the existing asphalt pathway, we stop all, construction. So again, from that pathway in, we do not touch. We are presenting a little bit of new landscape enhancements. All of our landscaping is 100% native. We were, very understanding that there was a new ordinance that was passed to meet I think it was, 73%? 75% native. We went above and beyond and made all of our plant selection native. So 100% of the plant selections we are implementing would be native species. We are not creating anything that take away from the Rose Garden itself. It's more about, aesthetics of natural landscaping that create a natural buffer while you're in the Rose Garden, that you don't necessarily see the street and the road above it and the traffic above it, by just creating a little bit of buffer, both with enhancing a little bit of the shrubs and providing some new trees themselves. Most of them would be ornamental, so that they would flower basically around the springtime and bring a little color in there. We really tried to pick the pinkish, reddish tones of the color that highlight the color of the rose garden itself. But again, not trying to take away from anything of the rose garden. That really made it seem like that these plantings were there from the original date of implementation of this park.
Is that where the entrance is right now?
The only entrances are actually, and I'll step aside. So this is the existing elm tree that you have. So the existing entrances now go around the elm tree. One of the things we worked with was your forester, and she was very, the elm tree is important, so we understand that. I mean, it's a huge elm tree. It's been around for, longer than most of any of us, probably any of us. And so what we wanted to do is take away from any disturbance that made. And so we're going to eliminate all of that asphalt around it. We're going to put a perimeter fence along the edge of that sidewalk. We worked with, and you can kind of see it here. That would be the fence. It's a very simple fence. It allows visualization into the park and out of the park. That way you don't feel like there's a perimeter as you walk along Milburn Avenue, that you're not welcomed into the park. But the point was to save the elm tree, get the entrance away from there, eliminate that asphalt that's around there, and allow more water, more vegetation, more aeration for the elm tree to survive a little bit longer. So that is a new entrance, but the area around it is existing. Now, in terms of impervious coverage, that's a lot of things that we actually talked about. We are actually reducing the impervious coverage from the existing that is there. So the walkway itself tends to bend a little bit, and that's to replicate the canopy around the elm tree. So as you get closer to the commemorative rock in the elm tree, it actually starts to pinch at that point. It's still actually about almost an 8-foot wide area, so it still is allowable for pedestrians to walk in either direction. And actually 8 foot is really even allowable for people on bicycles to go both ways. So there is ample room. I know Milburn Avenue does have a lot of traffic, so you won't feel like you're right up onto that curb area and vehicles are coming close by. But then it does start to widen as you go around on both directions. Again, that's kind of give you that, little significance of the elm tree canopy overhead. The area where we are presenting the new entrance itself is actually set back more so than it is existing. It's about 18 feet in. There is a little bit of a wider entrance. We're putting benches over there. That is where the historical kiosk is there. We have new benches that would be replacing the existing green benches with the plaques. We talked with the town, and the intent would be to keep those benches and replace the benches that are inside the park, the little wooden ones that have a little bit of wear and tear. So what's happening is you're almost improving that by keeping the same ones. We're bringing in the new benches for the outside of the park.
I know there were already a couple of questions, but does anybody have any questions? Please.
When, I can go last, I mean.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have quite a few questions. So the teak benches, I mean, I actually just walked through the park this past weekend, and the teak benches, have sort of, not a Chippendale style, but sort of an English garden aesthetic to it, which is really appropriate with that rose garden. And they usually will, if they're good quality teak benches, will last for a long time. Are they in disrepair that they can't be just power washed and reused? Because I think the aesthetic of them are quite nice. I was just curious, as to why we were replacing those. That was my first question.
So I would be careful about power washing because I don't know they're natural wood. So when you power wash, you can start to splinter it. And once you splinter it,
Well, they're teak.
Oh, okay.
Teak, they look like they're teak. I'm just confirming to ask Alex if they are teak, because if they're teak, they can easily be power washed. I was just curious.
Sure. Can you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Alexander McDonald.
Do you swear that the testimony you're going to provide tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So I think to answer that question, we can certainly evaluate the condition more so of those benches. Again, it was just those benches that are currently on the outside of Taylor Park will be reused, I think is the larger point. They'll be reused somewhere. We'll find the appropriate space for them. If those benches that are in the Rose Garden feel more appropriate or can be salvaged in a way. Sometimes they do call, if they are in disrepair, they will be a liability. People sit on them to break, whatever it is. But we can evaluate that further.
Okay, and then I'm just confused. I've seen like a lot of different aesthetics going on throughout the town, and so can you describe the trash cans? Because we have multiple different styles of trash cans, and there's a lack of consistency throughout the town. So we have bright royal blue trash cans that are, painted metal. We have green ones that have plastic black bags around them. We have the more modern style ones. And so we're going to now have like a fourth or fifth style introduced into the township. So I was just trying to understand the consistency and like how we can have a consistency throughout the township so it looks like solid. Just throwing that out.
Sure, and that was one of the things that we discussed, what's the best approach of creating something. One of the things that we liked about this one was two things. One was the symbol that we discussed, the fact that it ties in almost the rose to it as well. There is a connection between that and the benches itself, so the style does match that. The third one is the side loading that allows somebody to take out the bin, that you don't have to lift up the top, pull it out. There might be a hole. You start to stretch it out. So these were things, like I said, that we tried to modernize and bring up the quality of what's out there. The fixture itself does match some of the trash cans that you have out there. And that's part of the things that not only we see both in your town, but in other projects that we work with is this: how do you create unity amongst a wide range of variety out there that has been done for years? And the best way to start it is to kind of start what works. And one of the things we discussed are, like I said, what are the things that we want to do? We wanted to bring and tie into the history of the significance of both the town and the park itself. That was the emblems. We wanted to bring unity of something that matched. It's not a brand new entity that doesn't match anything, and all of a sudden we're bringing in a stainless steel one that's modern. This matches the benches, which the benches kind of match other benches that you have throughout the town. The third one is, it's not something that stands out, that should you walk by it, it's totally different from anything else. It is just a trash can. It is black. It does hide around the back. We are only presenting one trash can and one recycling area there. This was something that we discussed, and again, it does match most of them out there, and it sets a standard as something that you can use throughout the town.
And I think the further answer to that question is that this style does match the bright blue ones that you described. It's a different color, obviously.
Yeah.
It's different, but it is the same style. The trash cans that were placed in the downtown area in connection with the Complete Streets project, which are the teak with the.
They're very lovely because they're so subtle, they blend into the background. That's why I
Yes,
was wondering
and
why
they
you wouldn't
are
take those
a-
into the park.
They are a nightmare as it relates to the style of it, because when people put stuff in the trash can, there's a gap between the
Okay.
bin and the teak, and so trash falls in between there, and it actually causes a littering issue. So it is something that, again, we're hopeful that we can continue to phase out those trash cans, only because they do cause an issue, and with the way that they're configured.
I'll jump in.
Oh,
and you
yeah,
can
feel
come
free,
back.
feel free.
How many phases is this park predicted to be? 3, 4?
So, as you know, there's a lot going on in Taylor Park.
Yeah.
Not just in this particular area, but, there is lighting being installed in Taylor Park. The playground will eventually probably be before all of you at some point, as they redo that playground with the $750,000 grant that the township received. And, there's a historical kiosk going in on the other side regarding the Battle of Springfield and Milburn's role in the Revolutionary War. And this particular part of the park, I think, was envisioned in 3 phases. As you know, we've been down this road before. We went to do a revamp of the gateway to Taylor Park. It was a project that did not gain steam, mostly because of its impact to the Rose Garden and people's concerns about the cost and the overall scope of it. So it was instructed by the township committee at the time for us to approach this in a scaled back version, address the front of the park with a certain dollar amount that was provided by, authorized by the township committee. And so this is the first of that. And so if we can find success in this effort, then we can move on to a subsequent phase. Again, I think even if we talked in the second phase of the Rose Garden, it would be the outside of the Rose Garden, like the vegetation on the outside, and the path, and probably not much more than that.
So my understanding is that the current path isn't going to be there anymore, or it's going to be blocked off because it's going to be fenced at the road.
It's going to be ripped up.
Okay.
Because right now, if just from my experience and what I've seen our forester and our shade tree department do as it relates to that almost 200-year-old elm tree, and there aren't many elm trees around anymore because of Dutch elm disease. This is probably one of the best specimens you'll see. They actually have been out there and they cultivate the roots, they cut the roots, they make sure the roots are growing the correct way. And so we're going to eliminate that asphalt to take the pressure off of that tree and its root system.
Okay. Is there, I mean, when I look at this, particularly the new entrance, you either have to go up and around or you go down and around the Rose Garden. Now, I know the Rose Garden is a very touchy subject, right? But if you look at the pathways and the original landscape plan it's Brindley and Holbrook, that was on purpose to get the actual walkway. Now it's kind of at an angle and it dumps you right into the actual Rose Garden itself and not a pathway to directly go then into the park. Can you tell me why maybe that was chosen instead of connecting around the tree? And I'm just curious, because is the road or?
But it's the same, it's the same reason. You can't have it, I think part of it is you can't have it both ways. You either help protect the elm tree and maintain the elm tree, or you have the path go over the elm tree's root system and straight into the park.
Right.
And there's also an ADA accessibility issue with the topography of the park at that point, to be able to provide access to everyone that wants to enjoy the park. And that's why the ramp exists and why it's constructed.
No, I agree with the ramp. I'm just saying, if you look at the historic Brindley and Holbrook design, and I can certainly show you, I did take a copy of this. It purposely goes into that, let's just call it that circle, and the walkway is more direct into the park.
Yep. We actually investigated different areas to bring in entrances. We looked at having multiple entrances, one on either side of the elm tree. I think to Alex's point, the main thing we wanted to do was to avoid where the elm tree was. Unfortunately, the elm tree is dead center to where that axis lines up. So to Alex's point, he's right. To eliminate that, you're eliminating the access point. So then you get to, you want to one side versus the other. We ended up staying with this side because, one, it is closer to the center of your town. So the majority of people are going that way. There is a bus stop local in proximity to that area. So anybody coming on and off the bus stop might have the opportunity of saying, it's a beautiful day like today. Let me go investigate into the park. Let me go enjoy myself for 10 minutes. I have a little bit of time. It's an area, again, that while they're waiting for a bus stop, maybe they sit back, they sit there, they read a little bit about the plaque, they read a little bit about the historical kiosk. They have opportunity for that. We also looked at having, like I said, 2 entrances for that. One of them was going to be right across from the crosswalk, crossing over Millward Avenue, so that as you walked across that, there was an entrance right in there. Unfortunately, because of budget, we just couldn't afford that, but there's opportunity. What we did was we allowed, and that's something that we always do at Spezos, try to create designs that have opportunities for future, enhancements. That it's not a, you're pigeonholed to this is the design and you can't really do anything about it. So we talked about whether or not there was the opportunity to present an entrance on that other side aligning with the crosswalk. There still is. Unfortunately, because of budget, that was something that we scaled back. That way we stayed within budget. Of course, if that's something that, the town wants to proceed with, that could be something that's decided when you do the second phase or third phase, or even that's a different phase itself of just creating that walkway there. We are providing a gate there, or a fence there, I'm sorry. All you would have to do is remove the fence panel and we already have like a theoretical design. Because you guys hired us, that design is yours, so you have that should you not hire Spiesel. That is your property to, do with as you please. But it was something that it wasn't like a Spiesel presented a design and Milburn was like, okay, this is it. And we were just like, let's roll with it. We went through many weeks and variations. We talked about it. We sat on it. We thought about it. We weighed the pros and cons. This was just something that we settled on. Like I said, the main driving factor was always the elm tree. Because again, once you start to mess with that and that goes, it's such a significant piece, not only to the road itself, but also that entrance. If you lose that, you're really going to lose something. And again, the size of the canopy, the size of it, you will never be able to replace. And to say, oh, well, in 200 years, I can replace that. No. Who's to say in 200 years that would, you know what I mean? So like, that was something that we really wanted to focus on. And that's kind of why we, worked around it. To the case in point of where we decided for the entrance, the angle of itself does kind of bring into the center. So as you walk down it, you do get the focal point of the center of the rose garden. It isn't 100% for that, but that is just so that we could make an ADA accessible ramp into the garden, which again, like Alex said, you did not have. So now you're not only creating a new entrance, but you're saying anyone, disability-wise, in a wheelchair, in a walker, now has the opportunity to get into this space as per code.
I understand
Can I
that. Go
just
ahead.
add 2 points to that? One is, I don't think when they originally planned out the garden, they probably intended or anticipated that that elm tree would be what it is today. In addition, we did talk about providing sort of an extension of that piece, that straight piece, so that people could stand there and observe, of the elm tree, enjoy the elm tree. And then, of course, if something should ever happen to the elm tree, I think you can always discuss whether that becomes another entry
Right.
point.
Right.
Where is the elm tree on that illustration there? Can you just point where so it's literally, okay, because you realize when you put that fence in and all the fence posts and lift everything up, that you're gonna disturb the root system on that tree as well as just leaving it?
So the fence is actually further in than where your existing pavement is.
By how many feet from the trunk?
It's probably about, from the trunk itself, we're about 1.5 feet in front of the commemorative rock itself. So your sidewalk pretty much goes almost to the commemorative rock right now. So we're creating a little bit more buffer room from that area for that. So that's why I said we're removing some of the pavement and adding that fence for protection so that people don't start to tread on that area and compact the soil for that.
I mean, but you could
Sheet
accomplish
7
that.
maybe?
Yeah, what?
Sheet 7 on the board?
Oh, thank you. I mean, I just wanted to throw something out there because I spent some time like looking at the park, just going back to what Allison was saying, sorry, about, having a master plan, because I think that when you start to do things in sections, I'm sorry, when you start to do things in sections, it gets very broken, and I mean, I know that we have a budget, but I would rather see the whole budget go towards design and design the entire park, and then take it, if it's a 10-year plan, literally say we're doing this section, versus just going in and just designing segments. It's, much more productive, and it gives a flow that's cohesive, in line with the original vision of what, Allison was discussing. I also wanted to I do have a comment just quickly. The thing that's really beautiful, the thing about the park that's really so sad is it's just in disrepair. So if you went in and put in boxwoods that are not. I think they look like they're American or English boxwoods or some iteration of that. They're dying. And just replaced that and left the rose garden intact and actually planted grass that was living and mulched and weeded and came in and replaced, instead of doing really, high-end, stamped concrete, and literally just did like a clay path with crushed, bluestone that's super fine, which is really great on the feet to walk on. A lot of park systems are doing that now, and just really focused on maybe, redirecting a path for ADA people on the right-hand side that's more hidden and tucked away and is less severe, and then possibly, still using that flow, because like that tree's there, and like, you could put up some, just curbstone or something. I don't know. I mean, I don't see people like walking all over the roots personally, but I like the fact that you see into the park, and that's the beauty of it. Even that gazebo, it's just in disrepair. Like literally, it's pretty solid. Like it could be repainted, and fully stripped down by a skilled carpenter and maybe reshingled. There's just a lot there that's really beautiful, and I feel like we're putting all this money into sort of a fence that closes it in and makes it feel gated out. But that's just my opinion, and that might actually damage the tree more. But just like, I'm just giving you an overview of my thought, sorry.
No, absolutely.
Because you were talking
I think
about
you make
specifically.
a lot of valid points, and so I will try to hit on a
Yeah.
couple of the things that you mentioned, and let me
Okay.
just replace the board. So a few things. We did a road study, and we looked at where the views are into the park. And so your one comment, which was later on in your sentence, was the view into the park and the gazebo itself. And you could see from this point, you can actually see the gazebo. So that was one of the things that we looked at, was getting you centered into that area. Another thing that you mentioned was about the enhancements of the garden with the boxwoods and the pathways. That was not in our scope. Again, our scope was only in the entrance, so we do not have the authority or the implementation of putting in any enhancements to the park. One of the things that we discussed was that, like you said, that you start to segment, that you only start to design this, and how do you phase from A to B, and how do you make that seamless? That was why I said when we worked with the landscape, and that was one of the things that Spiesel very much questioned, was how do we enhance the landscape that gives opportunity, that that it looks like it's natural. It's not like all of a sudden you only enhanced up to this line and you could see enhancement, you could see natural. That was one of the things we looked at. The other one was when you do finally go through that second phase of bringing in new enhancements, that we allow the opportunity for plantings and other elements to transition through both segments. That it's not, again, if Spiesel doesn't get hired or if another design firm gets hired, how do they tie into what we did? So we were very cognizant of how those tie-ins would happen and how those abilities did. So what we did with the landscape was very minimal, but enhanced what was there by what was being removed when construction was there. Another point you had was about the fencing. And like I said, we originally talked about bringing some of that stonework fencing along a little bit wider, bringing in a little bit of a wings to enhance that entrance that was being brought in. The concern was exactly as you raised, that were you going to fence off and almost create a perimeter where you're a pedestrian outside the park versus someone that's inside the park. There's a very fine line. And that's why when we looked at fencing, we looked at opportunity of creating how to eliminate horizontal bars. So visually, you have that opportunity to look in there. Is there opportunity that we could widen the vertical bars? Per code, you really can't do that because of the grade. So we tried to find the least offensive fence that we could find. The fact that it's black, again, it's not white, it's not a color, it's something that would almost blend in a little bit. That was something that we investigated heavily on. You made another comment about could you bring in ADA on the other side, the right or left, opposite of the side that we're working on.
Yeah, the right
Unfortunately,
side.
because of grade, that is not the best area to do it. You would have to actually create like a back and forth ramp to do that on. The grade change is a little bit higher versus the distance from the existing asphalt walk itself. Would we, if we had the opportunity to change where that asphalt walk was, maybe we could provide a little bit more run to meet that opportunity. Again, that was not the side that works with ADA. So again, making this an ADA accessible entrance, the side that we are presenting now was the, premier spot to work with. So I think there may have been one more, and I forget. If there was something that I didn't hit, feel free to let me know. And
What makes that entrance not ADA, excuse my ignorance,
It's okay.
today? Is it because it doesn't have an appropriate railing? Or
it's
that
because
the
of the
grade is too steep?
the grade is too steep.
By how many, like, by a lot, or, I mean, is it
By a few
something-
feet. So in order to have a ramp, you need it to be, about 8%.
Okay.
Once it's over that, then it does not meet ADA standards. And so what happens is usually it's about, 1 foot for every 20 foot. That's usually the size of how you run it. You're about like 3 or 3.5, 3.6 feet grade change. You just don't have that run. So that's why I said you would have to do what's called like a switchback, which
Yeah,
means you kind of have to go right and then you got to go left. The difficult part about that is that creates more impervious coverage, that creates more ripping out of area, that creates more of a focal point of now you have this huge ramp system out there. Is that something that, Alex described this park as almost like a secret garden. And, us at Spiesel, we went out there, we spent many hours there. We sat out there, we talked to people that were out there. We saw the events that go on there. We talked to residents that were passing by. We talked to residents that were doing, you have a very high Asian culture that goes in the park. And I talked to many of them during the morning ones. You also have a preschool class that goes out there to do music classes. And so a lot of them talked about the fact that they enjoyed that it has a, oldness feel of it, that it's been there longer than they have. And so what we really wanted to do was hide the fact that we're improving this. And that's why I said a lot of the landscape improvements that we're doing are stuff that we felt that when put in, it would almost look like that had been there since the beginning. That it wasn't like we're just throwing in new plants and all of a sudden it's an English cottage garden along the outside and then we're competing with the rose garden. We really wanted to feel like that we didn't bring new elements to the garden, that we just kind of touched up and improved it from what was there from, 100 years ago.
So, go ahead.
I guess, I think your statement contradicts actually what you've done here. So like, I look at the plan and I do agree, it is a secret garden. It's a park that you meander through. And what this entrance is, looks to me like a city park that you need to close the gates at night to keep people out of. This is not, to me, this is very heavy-handed for what we have here. The entrance now is so subdued that you just walk into it and all of a sudden you're in this park. This is like, this to me does not even spell any of those things. Like if you can just look at the historic plan, it is all about meandering curves, gentle access, and this is not gentle. It's very large columns, it's tall gates. It's not, you could put something if you wanted to protect the tree that was low, that would kind of deter people from going there. This is as if you were keeping everybody out of the garden except for when they're allowed to go there. And so I think it's a strange answer to the question, but your statement actually, you wanted to create what you are saying, that this is a hidden garden and this is a meandering and this goes with the historic design of the park, but it doesn't. It's very heavy-handed. And I guess my other question is, and I do agree, I think we need to really see what the tree protection plan is for construction for this, because I'm not sure if this plan that you have is just not correct, but your protection plan is basically you're putting a fence right through the middle of it, which maybe the plan is just not correct, but to me it looks like the canopy that you're looking to protect the tree root, you're driving this project right through the middle of it. So I guess those are my main comments, is that I think you would need to really come back with a real true construction protection plan for this tree, outline that on the plan and see what permanent improvements you're going to put in that area. I would like to see that at some point. I'm sure the arborist would like to see that as well. So really hire somebody that does construction tree plans, which there are many people out there that protect trees during construction. And they will give you the full root system and where you shouldn't put any permanent building in there. So I don't know if you've done that yet, but I think that's an important next step. And then I would also really like to see less here. And then we could do more improvements to the park if we got rid of the fence, if we got rid of these heavy wheels on the side. Like, this isn't, it doesn't go with the park at all, or with what your statement is. I agree with your statement, but I don't agree with the design.
Chairman, is that, so we are conflicted, as you stated, because the real impetus of this project was a downtown vision plan that asked for and stated that there should be more of a draw into the park, right? Like something that is noticeable to people as they walk by, as they drive by. So there is a conflict inherently based on the fact that it is, a secluded space right next to Milburn Avenue. It is a place where people are trying to, we're trying to draw people into the park, but also keep it a secluded space that people can enjoy. So you're absolutely right. It's conflicted to a degree right from the beginning because we're trying to balance those two aspects. I think as far as the tree protection, the township has a forester on staff that is a licensed tree expert, arborist, all of those things, who has been involved in this project from the get-go, has seen every iteration of the plan, is actually taking it upon herself to be the one to remove the asphalt from the roots if this project moves forward, and be a part of that construction aspect around the elm tree and the canopy. So just, again, I'm not refuting anything you said, I'm just letting you know.
No, I'm just worried that you're gonna get to that point and you're gonna realize that there's issue. I'd rather have you come to those issues before you get to that point. If truly you can build around it, that's fine. It's just that the drawing that you did here, showing that you're going right through the tree protection plan.
You need footings that are probably at least 2 feet deep for those walls.
More than
wouldn't
that,
you?
more
Yeah.
than that. If you
Yeah.
need frost
So the walls
protection.
itself are outside of the tree canopy, which is basically how the root system goes. That tree canopy is about 108, 110 feet wide. So we are outside of that. Typically, that is how root systems, when you calibrate where trees are based on where they could go. So we do fall outside of that. That was, again, one of the things that we looked at, where entrances falls, and that's kind of why we positioned it where it was, not too far outside, not too far to the left. We made sure that we stayed outside of that, and that was why we eliminated some of those wing walls that I originally talked about. In terms of the fencing,
Okay, can I
I'm
just say
sorry,
though,
yeah,
then,
absolutely.
your plan that you presented is incorrect then?
It
Can you
does
correct
show.
the plan then? Because what you're showing here is,
I mean, you can see the fence right under the tree canopy.
Yeah.
this is,
It's right under it.
I don't think those are those the construction?
This is not a construction, I'm not sure.
So what I'm hearing here is if it's not what's on this page, and this is part of the construction documents, they probably need to reflect what's really happening there.
These are,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was, we're going off of an aerial, where, again, I'm not going to, I'm not trying to defend, what we didn't present, because that is Spiesel's work. But, typically when Google Earth is actually on an angle, so, we have a survey of exactly where the tree falls, where the elevations lie, where all of that is. That was something that when we created the documentations for that we made sure that we stayed outside of that.
Well, maybe that's something that, Alex, maybe you can share with,
I was
Our
under the
commission.
impression that the construction documents that you had put together were provided to the board.
they, they weren't, but are they online, or where are they, do you know?
We'll send you the construction
Yeah,
documents.
okay. Which brings up point, I'm gonna pull it back to history
sure.
and less.
I did just want to make one point,
Yeah,
just
sure.
a quick one.
Sure.
One of the things that we talked about with the fencing along the perimeter, is it actually undulates. So in terms of the height itself, it's actually both a 4-foot, which is probably, about that tall, to a 3-foot. And the 3-foot actually lowers at areas of significance. So across from where the crosswalk is right now, across Millburn. So again, visually, as you walk across there, you have more eyesight into the park. At the commemorative rock itself and at the elm tree, again, so that when you get closer to it, you have that connection to it. And probably about like 4 feet from the edge of the column.
So then this rendering is
Right here.
old? Because that fence
So
is
the-
very
so-
tall.
So you're basically saying the stonework section of the fence is only for the little mini courtyard, correct?
Correct, yes. The stonework itself is only going to be at a 5-foot height. There's a 20-inch foot wall, it's called a knee wall,
Yeah.
and then there's a 3-foot fence on top of that. That fence is going to be wrought iron. Again, there's some little Easter eggs in there. They've got some little rose petal flowers in there, again, to tie into that. So again, I am 6'4", so the top of that, pillar and the top of that fence is probably only going to be that tall.
So your point is it's just a regular fence that's gonna be hitting through the tree.
Correct,
It's-
yes,
you
yes.
still gonna have-
It's not like an 8-foot tall, it's not as,
The split rail
Yeah.
fence that exists.
correct.
So I have a history question. So how did the gateway term come up?
That's just the term that was used in the downtown vision plan.
Okay, because I think there might be some historic confusion because there is the Wyoming Gateway. So through history, that might become somewhat, if somebody said, the gateway, now you have the gateway to the park, if that's what it's gonna be called.
I don't care what you.
Okay, but I'm just bringing up historic things that maybe just to think about, and suggestions. Also the, maintenance, we talked about funding and all this other stuff. I think to have wood mill wheels or whatever, that could be a very,
So the wheels are actually steel
Okay.
with a wood facade look to them.
Okay.
So there would not be any maintenance. And one of the things that we actually talked about too, no, 'cause I don't mean to, was you have brick pavers along that walk. And so there's the unsettling of that and the maintenance of it. So one of the things that we looked at was creating more of just concrete for there, and then some stamped concrete along the edge, which would replicate the brick. Again, creating that opportunity that, you have so much brick throughout your town. And there's so much historical aspects with the brick itself that we didn't want to totally eliminate the brick. But this also prevents the maintenance, like you said, of settling, having to replace any that break, crack, settle. But it ties in there, that brings that connection that, again, allows the opportunity of material looking to connect with other areas of your town.
and I tend to disagree with that because I think the maintenance on some of these more true materials instead of stamped concrete, but that's debatable.
What true material, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, more solid materials and done properly, whether it's with brick or whatever. I mean, in my house, I have brick that's over 100 years old that's still,
Yeah, I think that what we've noticed with, that brick that was installed throughout the downtown was done so, I believe, I want to say it was somewhere in the 80s based on a grant that was received by a lot of towns. And you see these brick edgings on sidewalks in downtown. So I don't know that it has like a tie to the community at all, except for it was probably an aesthetic project at some point.
right.
It is a maintenance nightmare, and then it's always a conversation with the town to the property owner, who's responsible for that brick. I mean, we installed it sometime, 50 years ago, whatever it was. Who's responsible for maintaining that? It settles. There's ones that pop up. We actually had somebody who had ridden their bike and a brick had, I guess, gone vertical for some reason, whether a kid placed it that way or they ran into the brick, they wrecked their bike. These are things, and we got a tort claim for it.
Yeah.
It is a maintenance issue.
All the things that you have to take in consideration, and
Of course,
certainly with the
which is why
ADA
the
ramp.
maintenance, the aspect of how this is being built is from that perspective, low maintenance.
Right. I'd like to go back and say, the thing that scares me the most is that it's being done in phases. And let me explain why. Because this particular landscape architect who designed this particular park was chosen. And just so you know their background, they did work for the New York Botanical Gardens. They've done work for the Morristown Green that was built in the 1600s, and very little of it changed except for landscaping. They've done the Maplewood Memorial Park. For those who don't know, the J Estate in Rye. The list goes on, Fairleigh Dickinson. So this particular architect, and was trained under Olmsted Senior, which did Central Park. I think we've got a diamond here that we need to be very careful with, whether it's, and I understand the building burnt timeline, I pulled it for everyone on that list. The park opened in 1924. The field house was constructed in 1934. It burnt in it was expanded, it burnt in 1960, right? And rebuilt in 1973. So again, if we were to look at this historically, we'd say it's really not a contributing, but it is because of where it is. So, and the oldest building is the little building on the very corner. It was a nursery school, and I'm not sure what it is today. Is it still a nursery school in the very corner? But to me, to phase this out and have different architects work on this, right, could be very, lessen the value of and the importance of this particular park. I do understand the ADA ramp. I do understand today's modern. We didn't understand the tree. My suggestion would be, even though the rose garden is a very touchy thing, I see bikes ending up in the first bunch of roses there with that straight angle. Maybe entertaining changing the pathway, if that's exactly where that pathway is going to stay. But I think you have to have a more long-term vision of what's going to happen here.
So, just to chime in on that.
Sure.
Quite honestly, that was 2021, 2022, and 2023, right? We went down that path. We went down the path of a holistic approach to the area. It was not well received, and we were instructed by the governing body at that time to take this approach. So that's why we're here. That's why it is what it is. And I think that Spiesel has, in my mind, done the task they've been asked to do.
Right.
I think they've done a good job, and that I wouldn't see any reason why, because as a professional service, we can choose who we want to move on and do other aspects of that. Why they wouldn't be involved in that to help with that cohesion, but also very good comment about the bikes.
Yeah. And so what I see happening here is again, starting with an architect that will stay with this project, and also maybe working with them on the history of what was here and the materials that were used. I know, I tend to agree that the entrance is really overdone for the style of the park. Could we get the same result if it were softened a little more or not as big, you know what I mean? But I also know that things are changing with time, and we need to not stand in the past, but kind of move forward. I just want to make sure that as a historic, that we move forward in the right direction, because we don't want to lose this place in history, which we do. Milburn Taylor Park is listed as one of their projects. The minute that we change it too much, it will no longer be that. So, and I really wanted to bring up the Morristown Green again, is because it was actually, a road through their park in the 1600s. And then when he got involved and started planting plants and it became more of a park, it has remained the same. Materials, when they update something, the materials are put back. Do we know what, there is a record of the materials that were used in this park. And then along the way it got paved and along the way it got, we have plans. We have architectural plans, we have material plans, they're all in the Morristown Library. I just want to just make sure that we're doing this correctly so it, it stays as famous as it is. So, and one other thing too, I think the plaques, and you can take, again, we're just making recommendations, but the plaque itself should say something about Brindley and Holbrook and about how this was designed and why it was designed. And I think when you have like the history of the park, this park's going to be known more for who designed it originally and then who took over from there, so in history.
We would be more than privileged if the Historic Preservation Commission wanted to provide what information goes on that plaque or that kiosk.
So, anybody else? I mean, again, remember,
have
we're
comments.
just advisory,
Yeah.
They're taking into account everything that we're saying here today, but is there anything that,
I have comments when everybody
Go
else is,
ahead.
when everybody else is done. I don't want to be
I
involved.
write it
My-
out.
I
my-
would-
My comment is that, there's a lot of public work projects seems to be going, like the courthouse. And so there should be some kind of coordinated consistency between the designers. I was sitting through the presentation for the courthouse. The front pavement looks different from what's being projected here. I do not know the materials, so that would be helpful. It's just my thought. Some kind of coordination between all these projects, so there is some uniformity around the main districts. But I do see the need for improvement on the Taylor Park. I've been through that. It's almost, nobody will recognize that there is a park behind. Maybe that's what it was intended to. But being the new part of it, I would like to see, if you look at Central Park, we know it is Central Park. The entrance is grand. There is inviting aspect to it, and I like that about this, right? So it's a challenge, but I definitely, maybe instead of keeping a smaller gate and make it like a small thing that you go inside, make it, maybe leave it open. That's again my suggestion. Instead of making it smaller entrance to get in, just leave it open. Have all the pavement, so it's still grand, but at least it's not making it a small entrance. So look, my main thing is, it's like, there's so many projects going on. In fact, in the main part of the town, there has to be coordination between the architects, so there is some consistency. And also preserving the historical materials and things like that. That was one. The second part is, from what I understand, there is flooding this zone. I'm not sure if this particular area is impacted. So from a maintenance perspective, whatever we are doing, if it gets flooded for any reason, how is this, is there proper drainage? I don't see that. How is that going to be, factored into that?
So a few things. One, I am a landscape architect, not an architect. I don't like architects. I want to let you know.
I apologize.
And maybe in like 40 years, you'll be saying, man, that Will Suter, man, he designed this. Who was that Olmsted guy? Will Suter designed it. Hopes? I don't know. I doubt I'll ever be as great as Olmsted, but I will let you know that is a strive of mine.
Okay.
But I am a landscape architect. I don't want to be known as an architect. So, we did go through the history of it. So in that sense, I understand the environmental significance. That's kind of why I went more landscape architecture than architecture and engineering. So to your point, a few things. The materials, we actually looked at that. And that's why, and you had a comment as well, Allison, about the, I said stamped concrete. We are also bringing in the natural granite pavers that are throughout the community at the corners of Millbird Avenue and Main Street. And so that is tying into what you said of bringing in existing elements. And that's what we tried to do. We really walked the site. I walked the site. I walked around your town. I had dinner. before here in your town, I tried to really understand what's happening. I saw you have, you have a nice Millward Avenue as you come down Millward Avenue, sign there. Look at the significance of that. What parts do your community represent that they find significance in? And that's why we brought in different features of this. So I understand what you're saying of maybe it's too grand, maybe it's too elegant, and it's not that natural. It's just a subtle entrance in there. But what we really tried to do as a design firm was bring in those aspects that have that sense of community tie-in to the history of it. That's why we built some of the stonework of the Bauer Community Center, so that that has a tie-in. So that center isn't just stonework that is just part of that building, that it ties into the entrance. As you walk in, maybe the everyday person doesn't walk by and says, oh, that's the stone to that building. But it has that significance that through the test of time, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, it has that connection. We brought in the stonework, like I said, that through the corners that you started to enhance, that looked like you've done that, what, in the last 5, 10 years probably? That's something that you can continue to build upon throughout your community, that again, should you do that at more than just those locations, this area now ties into there. Again, with the stamped concrete, with the brick, it's only along the edges. That ties into the brick that's throughout your community. So again, that should you never replace all the brick through there, that has the connection into it. We looked at different fencing through the history of what images showed through there, different picket fences, different materials. This was a fence that was shown at different areas that, kind of like the benches and the trash can, have a close representation of things that were there 80 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. So these are pieces, like I said, that to your point, that have those connections that tie in, hopefully, that other places look at, that when they enhance other buildings, other areas, other phases, that they have that opportunity to tie in seamlessly, that we're not just bringing in something that's, 2025, all of a sudden, boom, here we are, this is modern type way. This was something that we really investigated on, looked through the history of the images, and really tried to find that connection piece through your community that would work well with it. I can't speak for the other places for that. I would recommend that those designers as well look at the other areas and plan in advance of how those connections work.
See, on that note, I would like to think more like, instead of having a wheel, which is always mechanical, it needs to be maintained, we can have a bigger kiosk, like a board that shows the historical part. You give a bigger canvas for talking about, instead of a small kiosk in front of the store, we could think of something like using, instead of spending money on the wheel.
So those wheels aren't operational, just to let you know. It was pure aesthetics of, again, the tie-in for that. And one of the things that we discussed.
See a bigger canvas
Yep.
kiosk representing the history of the park, the map of the park, information about the people. I understand the wheel is an aesthetic, but a bigger canvas space informing about the history of the kiosk.
Like a
of the whole
sculpture,
park. Sculpture,
like as a
3D
placement, I
rendering
agree,
of the
better
park
place in
in that
bronze or
big
something.
board with the information.
Yeah.
Is something you don't have to maintain, but,
So I think I'm hearing and let me see if I can put this together, less is more. So not make it, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like a Disneyland, but my whole piece is, and to your point about how grand it is, that was never the entrance to the park. The entrance to the park was actually off of Main Street, not Milburn Avenue. And so, I know, but, and now I'm gonna stick up for this. Alex, I know your job isn't easy, and you've been working on this since 21. And, I know how government works and how slow the process is and how that all happens. But the TC today, would they look at this differently, and would there be more funding to maybe move forward on this? I don't know. It's not my job.
So I have two things to say. One is, I answered that question at the public information session that we had. Because, and just to comment on the mill wheels that are a part of that entrance. We had a public information session on this project. This project was very well received in that session. The
one comment that we did get was about the wheels. So we have that in the specifications as an alternate. So it is not necessarily an aspect that would be included. Yes, the difficulty is that when you start a project and then things around you change, then that project has the potential to never get completed.
Correct.
Because the mindset changes on the committee, or, you know, the whatever it might be, there's all these competing forces when you have to try to push, put a project forward. And it becomes difficult to say, all right, well, we're gonna stop now, and then we're gonna ask again, do you want more, do you want less, do you want this? Like, you know, we were provided a direction, we moved in that direction, this is where we're at.
Right.
We're there. I think we're here to get feedback. Are there things that can be adjusted and tweaked and things like that, but not, in my mind, just a complete overhaul of where we're going with this.
I think I would just, so two things, is one, again, we understand where you're going with this. I think the mill wheels in the town need to be so not on the nose, so we should tell everybody.
It's a little literal.
It's a little literal, but also, this is the second committee meeting where you've come to us with a project that's done, and that's really unfortunate, because we do have architects from all over the town that do come in with conceptual things, and you can talk to a lot of them, and they will say they're lucky they came in here before they drew up all the plans and everything like that, because they came out with a better design.
So let me stop you there.
So to be
We've
fair-
just recognized, and Alex and we're working together now.
Okay.
That's why the two came before
Okay,
us.
yeah, because it's hard to look at something that's totally done, and it's hard to talk to somebody who's put so much effort into it,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
not-
say,
You were giving, yeah.
But to be fair, also, that, to a degree, what we're coming to you with is not, we're not saying this is set in stone, but we're saying, like, yeah, it's baked to a point that you can provide valuable input into it. And I'll give Town Hall as an example, right? So we were here last time about Town Hall, and the Historic Preservation Commission provided a series of comments regarding the exterior of the building. All of those comments have been incorporated into the new building. So it's not as if we came here saying, this is just pro forma and performance. We made those adjustments.
So,
It
and first
feels
of
a
all,
little
in
like that.
public, I would like to thank Alex for now understanding how important it is, because we do have people with experience and talents that could offer advice prior to the effort going into it. And we've now understood that, so from now on.
This is also, for a long time, this town has done projects in these various areas that were either designated in the historic element of the master plan, or designated or listed in the historic element of the master plan, and never came before this board. And so the relationship that Allison and I are forming, and the help of the
it's fine.
we're on track. And so this is part of that.
Yeah, no, I guess I more want to say, like, it doesn't feel good, like, being on this side, it doesn't feel good to tell somebody that put a lot of work into this design. And,
I've heard worse.
Yeah,
Just
no,
to let you know, I've heard a lot worse,
I
both
said
personally
worse,
and
so.
professionally. So anything you say, I could
yeah, no, I
probably
know,
take.
it just feels like, it's like, oh, we're kind of sitting here looking at something that's very far developed that seems to not be going in the direction that I think we would like it to go.
yeah.
So.
But again, too, right, like, the difficult task that we have as your local government is that we are trying to please 22,000 people. That's not an easy task. And every time we come forward with something, there is going to be, I'll be fair, 10,000 different opinions, right? So we are trying to come forward with the best possible project that
Compromise.
probably requires some tweaking, right? Not that it's written in stone, but that we have the ability to adjust slightly. But otherwise, we would be designing a project for years, in order to get to a point where at every point somebody doesn't have something that they want to adjust it. So I think that's part of it, and I think we'll get better at it for sure as we continue the enhanced relationship.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for agreeing to come in front of
Yeah.
us. Any suggestions that any of us have made, we're asking you to please reevaluate them and just see, thoughts, how difficult that would be. you know, and I understand pleasing a lot of people. But I also do believe that if people understood the history of this park and what it represents in all the parks, that in all these other places, they've really gone above and beyond, maybe there is additional funding to be had, or someone could step up and say, you know, like to, you know, donate to this. Now, that's wishful thinking, I do know that. But the fact is sometimes history adds more value sometimes to a place that's so tranquil and has remained the same for this length of time, or somewhat the same. And we all agree that it needs to be updated. So I think
I mean, compromise is the word, I think this is definitely in that right direction.
it's in
for
the right
sure.
direction, right?
Yeah.
The only thing is, I feel sorry for that kid, and it'll be me,
I know.
I'm not a
I'll
kid,
be
riding
looking
my
at it.
bike down that ramp and in the
Yeah.
rose bush.
Can I add a couple, oh, when he's done,
Yeah,
I
it's
just
very
wanted to
low.
add
Finish at
some
the end of it.
design comments.
Or whatever, yeah, would,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
Can I add just, because I just wanted to, can I just add some design comments? And your design is perfectly appropriate, and I'm sure you got very specific feedback. So it's not a criticism, like it's an appropriately nice design.
Thank you.
And so, I mean, and I'm new to the HPC, but I am very passionate about garden design and furniture design. So, you know, and one of the things, going back to Allison's, you know, tie to Olmsted, and I'm not as familiar with the other two architects, but if you walk through our park system that's here, and you look at some of the natural bridges, you know, within, the preserve that's here, that was designed by Olmsted, as was Central Park. And if you, I want to just reference some other parks, like if you go to Mohawk Mountain House up in upstate New York, and or go to Lake Minnewaska and walk through their park system, they have a lot of very natural, you know, very inexpensively built things, like gazebos, for example, just built out of simple wood, you know, actually hand, you know, carved kind of things, and it's very natural. It's also very inexpensive. So this type of stonework is very costly. I know, just having done a lot of my own projects, and so that's where I understand completely why this budget just gets totally blown down by that. And the suggestions that I just wanted to throw out is just, consistency is important. Being literal to history is sometimes important, but sometimes you can get caught up. So I just wanted to point out, just an opinion. So the Bauer Center is kind of a wonky building. I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece by any means, even if it is historic. And some of that stonework, if you look closely, it's been very sloppily sort of thrown with white plaster over it. And so one of the things is, I just wanted to comment, if you go through with the walls, that, you know, that you don't have to be so literal, matchy-matchy to it, because I think something more subdued with, you know, a grayer tone cement with tighter mortar joints might look better. I'm just throwing that out so it's more subtle, because going back to those designers, their aesthetic was very, very elegant and natural. And that's why I was pointing out the teak benches, because they last for a very long time. We have them. And, you know, these styles, you know, it feels more like a really formalized park, like Branch Brook Park in Newark, which was another Olmsted piece, I think. And this is just my opinion. These are just opinions. Take it or leave it. But I just wanted to, because I spent some time looking at it. I think the mill wheels are really great, but I think, again, you know, some of the groups have gotten really literal, and it's we have mill wheels flying throughout the park. And, you know, I like the concept of, you know, what Venkat was talking about, having a bronze sculpture that's very elegant. Maybe it's replacing that little dancing kid sculpture, you know, and there's a moment there with a plaque. I think making it as part of an entrance, the entrance is, to me, very claustrophobic feeling. And that garden is gorgeous. And going back to your comment about the secret garden, I mean, it's gorgeous to go in there. It literally just needs to be maintained. It's an unmaintained garden. And, you know, I guarantee you, if you just went in there and plant a grass seed, edged it, put in mulch, clean that place up, I mean, drop $100,000 right away, it would be amazing. And I think it's unfortunate with the ADA ramp. I still feel strongly about putting it somewhere else and keeping that central thing. There's two beautiful fir trees that look funky, like they're from, you know, some Far Eastern place, island in Japan. I don't know what species they are, but they're quite special. I don't know if you noticed them. They flank both sides of the park. But I thought that those were really, really neat. But I think going back to like natural materials, and I also wanted to comment on the native plant selections, going 100% native plants. There's this huge trend in our town to do that. And I have an opinion about it because, you know, there's a thing called biodiversity, and a lot of native plants are primarily, you know, they tend to burn out more quickly and not flower as long. And so I just don't want to be like caught up in having to give up design and the specialness of the beauty. Like, for example, daffodils are not native plants, nor, you know, and they're deer resistant, and, you know, you go to, like, to not plant that, you know, is unfortunate. Or like maybe you want to blow out the rose garden, which I know he works on all the time, and, you know, make another area with roses, and then you can't do that by having that literal commitment. So I highly suggest not going that way. You know, so that's just, you know, and then going back to the walkway and the stamped concrete, I have a really strong opinion about that because we had done these like sort of stamped faux bricks. They fade, and also because it's a larger piece, they often crack through the thing, and it looks sort of like a cheapened version. This is a, you know, a very elegant town, and you know, so, and the concrete, the color is concrete, fades as well. And so I think there's a lot going on with that sort of beige color concrete. And I think, you know, going back to your granite tie-in with concrete, maybe doing the clay, you know, and not doing asphalt. And also that brickwork, to Allison's point, I actually took a look at it because somebody was talking about it. It's not properly laid, the foundation, and that's why it's falling apart all the time and constantly caving in. It's laid in sand. It's like supposed to be on like clean stone and, you know, have crushed bluestone under it. And probably there's some type of fill. I forget that it's I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but, you know, I think that's important. And then I'd like to see the fence completely gone and just have a low sitting wall possibly. You could do that and call it a day and cut some expense out, just throwing that out as an idea. But that's just my ideas.
And
So,
again, you know,
Yeah.
we're trying to help here.
Yeah,
If-
we're not.
I think they're
you
all
have to
valid
do
points,
it.
and it's something that we'll discuss when we go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why we wanted to come here.
Yeah. And thank you for,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you
I
so
appreciate
much
that.
for your
I
time
appreciate
and-
you having us and
wanna go?
allowing me the opportunity to discuss and answer your questions and, you know, present what our design intent was from our meetings and conversations with the town themselves.
Thank you.
thank
so
you
much.
so
We
much
really
for
appreciate
the
it.
time,
Thanks,
Alex.
Alex.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah, oh, I guess, do we have anyone in the public who?
Yeah, I think there's,
I did forget to mention, is there anyone who would like to speak? No? Okay,
oh, for the,
well, thank you.
thank you so much.
All right. So, let's move on. Thank you for being so patient. We have application number 588, 17 Highland Avenue. I understand that this application is to be carried to the June 5th meeting, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, June 5th.
Okay, so we will not be hearing that application, so we're moving right along now,
So-
okay.
So just for a point of
Yes.
clarification, it's being carried without further notice.
Without further notice, okay? Thank you very much. So we're moving to new business application number 606, 412 Wyoming Avenue, block number 206, lot number 26. It's a contributing property in the Wyoming Historic District. Yeah, have you weren't here on behalf of this application before,
No, I
were
didn't.
you? No, I didn't think so. Is this Travis and Jacqueline Solcombe, if I pronounce, okay, are the applicants. This is a regulatory application for construction of an entire second floor addition and additional property improvements. So if we can have you sworn in, both of you, or whoever's speaking, is that okay? Great. I'm sorry?
606.
Yes.
Okay, can you state your name for the record? Can you state your name for the record, please?
Zachary Goldstein.
Okay, and do you swear the testimony we provide tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and what is your relationship to the application?
I'm the architect.
Okay. Are you licensed in the state of New Jersey?
Yeah, I am. My license is in good standing, and I'm a member in good standing of the American Institute of Architects. Yeah. And I've appeared before various historic and zoning boards throughout New Jersey.
And then, will anyone else be
Yes, I will,
speaking?
yeah.
Okay. Sorry then.
Travis Slocum,
Okay, could you spell your last name, please?
Slocum.
Okay, and do you swear the testimony you'll provide tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
All right, I'll get started here. Good evening. My name's Travis Slocum. I'm here with my wife, Jacqueline Slocum. We live at 412 Wyoming Avenue, along with our two boys. They are age 9 and 11. We have lived in the house for a little over 10 years now. We really love the house. We love the neighborhood. We love the community. And it's our intention to stay in this house for the long term. We just have outgrown the house in its current configuration. The house right now is just a 1950s single-story ranch, 3 bedrooms, and one of them is pretty undersized for a soon-to-be teenage boy. We also have my parents stay with us quite often, and Jackie's parents as well, from out of town. Whenever they do come over and stay, they have to sleep on a pull-out couch in the basement. So we're just trying to improve the house to make it more livable for our family and our extended family as well. Our proposal here is just to add a partial second story with a master suite, a guest bedroom, and an office. Jackie also works from home. Right now, she's in an office in the basement, so having an office on the second floor would just be much more comfortable for her as well. Want to thank you for your consideration tonight, and I'll let Zach give you the rest of the details about the building.
Okay, so just to kind of go through the property, kind of from like zooming out and then zooming into the proposed work. So the address is 412 Wyoming Avenue, Block 206, Lot 26. We're in zoning district R5, and this is application 606. The property is a 0.21 acre parcel on Wyoming Avenue in the Wyoming Historic District. It's between Cedar Street and Cypress Street in that area. The existing house is a modest 1,718 square foot, one-story colonial, originally built in 1950. The Milburn Historic Preservation Ordinance of 1987 lists the property as non-designated. So it's a non-designated structure in the district.
Okay. Sorry about that, because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, are you sure?
There's a lot of gorgeous historic homes near there, but this house happens to have been from 1950 and is not contributing.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
No worries. Great. So just to kind of walk through the existing house, I'm actually just going to start with the first floor. I think I just want to kind of talk about a few kind of key elements of the existing house that kind of served as, I guess, like DNA for how we thought about the renovation. So the first thing of note is just that the entrance to the house is on the side. There's a kind of gable that like sticks out on the right side of the house if you're facing it from the front street. And there's kind of private areas of the home flanking the sides with bedrooms on the sides. And then the more kind of living spaces through the center of the house. And so there's already this kind of organizational party of having the kind of living, having like a space that runs through the center. The existing structure is existing non-conforming in a variety of ways. I can kind of speak to in a second. In terms of just like the existing house, it's a one-story house with an attic above it. You can see the entrance on the side. It doesn't have some of the articulation that we might commonly see in a historic home. So it doesn't have like a portico over the entrance. It has a kind of triple window that we think kind of sets up well on the front facade, and then a gable that kind of presents itself from the front of the street. Along the rear, there's an addition that was done previously, and the entrance to the garage is kind of in the basement area on the back of the house and concealed from view at the street. So just to like kind of speak to the zoning of the site, because it is an important kind of factor for the site. So the house is existing non-conforming in a variety of different ways. For one, it's under width. So the minimum width in the district, the R5 district, is 75 feet, where the lot is 60 feet. So that tightness presents challenges when it comes to side yard setbacks that had an influence on the design. The lot is also undersized from a square footage perspective, quite significantly. Where 14,500 square feet is the minimum lot area for the district. The house, the lot is 9,000 square feet. So that presents challenges when it comes to FAR, the total area of the house, as well as coverage. And those were constraints ultimately that we were trying to work within to avoid the need for a variance. Ultimately, I think what the homeowners are looking for is quite modest, and we you know it took work, but we were able to really kind of thread the needle in, I think, a really nice way that kind of conforms to the zoning of the site, even despite the challenges of the size of the site. This is just kind of a rendered, I guess you could say, site plan that just kind of speaks to the overall layout of the site with some color to illustrate where there's grass and paver walks. Ultimately, we're not really touching the ground in any way with the work that's proposed. All the work is really, with the exception, I guess, of the front portico, the work is all on the second story. We're kind of over on coverages, so we aren't really in a position where we're really able to kind of do much by way of kind of expanding the house out horizontally. The first kind of architectural move that I think we needed to really do to effectuate the second story was to provide a staircase to the second floor. So the existing staircase, there's only one staircase and it leads to the basement because it's a one-story house. The existing staircase is in a challenging spot. It's basically in between the kitchen and the dining room, and it has a way of bifurcating those two rooms that the homeowners wanted to adjust. In addition to that, it's often helpful to have a staircase stacked through the house. It's space efficient, but it also provides a level of continuity and gives a kind of central place to kind of move up and down the house. And so the place that we kind of wanted to locate the staircase was close to the entrance to the home. It felt like an appropriate place for it for a colonial house. And given that there's a side entrance to the house, the staircase, it kind of made sense that the staircase would be on the side. The location of the staircase has to relate up to the addition on the second floor, and the addition is proposed to conform to the 16-foot side yard setback. And so ultimately, the staircase is in some ways set by the setback and the location of the addition above. The staircase that is existing, we're proposing to cover it up in place of a kind of new peninsula in the kitchen that creates a stronger connection between the dining room and the kitchen. In terms of the overall layout of the first floor, though, we're really trying to keep what's there. I think there's economic constraints that we're trying to be mindful of, as well as just trying to keep the existing house in place and just add the rooms that we're looking to add in a modest way. On the second floor, you can kind of see the staircase comes up from close to where the entrance is on the first floor, and then there's a hallway that kind of bifurcates the two sides of the overall floor. Again, the structure is set back from the property line 16 feet, and the existing structure goes closer to the property line, so there's a kind of setback that occurs on the second floor, which I think from a proportional perspective actually helps and is looking good. We have the primary suite situated towards the rear for a little privacy, and then towards the front we have Jackie's office, as well as their son's bedroom, as well as a hall bath at the back of that corridor. Just to kind of walk through the way we thought about the architecture on the outside, that setback is kind of what situates this gable on the proposed front facade. And we're also proposing a portico over the entrance, which we thought is a nice way of kind of marking the entrance. It creates what we thought was like a really nice hierarchy of gables along the front, with the smallest gable being the portico above the entrance, the kind of medium-sized gable above that exists really, that we're kind of embellishing with some details, and then the gable above the addition, which is the largest gable, and it's kind of furthest from the ground, which I think from a proportional perspective felt like it was working. We added some details along the base of the gable, some dentils, to give it a little bit more articulation. We also extended, there's red brick that exists kind of in this area here, and we extended that over in front of this gable here. So there's kind of a continuity of brick along the base of the house. So we'll be matching the existing brick. The window that exists on the ground floor here, we're proposing to basically kind of take that window and continue it up in the second floor to create a level of continuity that makes the addition feel as though it's really kind of integrated with the existing house. And then the window in Jackie's bedroom, in Jackie's office, is kind of taking a lesson, I guess, from the window that's on the ground floor. So we're trying to kind of take the existing DNA of the house and kind of reproduce that as we extend this addition up. And then we have a small window under the peak of the gable that is also kind of orthogonal and kind of, in the same language as the existing windows on the house. And so you can kind of see that the addition steps back a little bit from the kind of front of the house. I think there's a kind of general kind of nice setting back of the addition so that it feels less imposing from the street. And so even though it is a second floor addition, it's not a full addition to the house such that it doubles in size. And I think there's a kind of modesty to that is working really well. I'll also note that just from a site plan perspective, the house that's to the right is a 2-story kind of brick, I guess you'd say colonial on the right, and then to the left is a 1-story kind of ranch. And so I think in some ways what we're doing here is kind of helping to connect those two and provide like a nice kind of urban design kind of progression from the smaller to the slightly larger, where this is the kind of middle. We put together a rendering that I think you'll see in the packet of photos, just to kind of illustrate how the addition kind of might look. So you kind of see it's image 1 is the existing photo from the street, and then image 2 is the kind of rendering above that just shows the kind of articulation that we called out in the drawings. And then just to walk through the details in a little bit more focus. We're proposing hardy board cementitious clapboard for the siding of the house of the addition, and we would like to reclad the existing house as well. And we're thinking of a 7-inch exposure for that clapboard. I think ultimately we're just, like I said, just trying to kind of use the DNA of the existing house, maintain a lot of what is there, and then just enhance it in a kind of thoughtful and subtle way.
Wonderful. We'll start out. Have you had time to review Barton's comments or findings? And one of them was the half-round window at the attic level to better mimic the colonial revival architecture?
Yeah, so we appreciated Barton's comments. I think in terms of that window, the homeowner just had a preference for the kind of structure of the windows on the existing house, and I think just had a preference, an aesthetic preference, to the extent the board is comfortable with it, for a more kind of rectangular shape.
Okay. So you're saying that you don't want to remove this square window on his comment?
Yeah, if
Okay.
that'd be okay with the board, that would be the preference of the homeowner.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted clarification on that. And then no AZAC siding, so it's the hardy board now that you...
So we're in a bit of a unique condition there that I just wanted to talk about for a second. So
Sure.
the existing siding is vinyl. I think it's like a 5-inch exposure vinyl. We would love, in a perfect world, I think we would love to do cedar on the whole house. I think there's a kind of economic kind of limitation, I think especially with tariffs, and I think cedar often coming from Canada. It's just extremely expensive. So I think to comply with the wood, it would probably end up being like a painted pine. And I think just out of respect to the homeowner, I think that if they could do it out of hardy board, I think for one, it would be more affordable than doing it out of cedar. And then it might also last longer, and I may put them in a position where it's easier to kind of do the whole house in that. And I think there's a history of being comfortable with a hardy board, on non-contributing structures.
Yes.
So that was kind of the thought there.
I just needed clarification on those pieces. Okay, so any of the board have questions or comments on this application?
So the only thing I noticed is the height of the chimney on the old building versus the new one. Is there a reason why it's like, if you look at the one at this?
It's just a fire code thing. We just need to raise the chimney so that there's no kind of risk of kind of fire to the, so we would have to extend it up, basically.
So code, right? New
For code, yes.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't know that, actually, so thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Well, I don't know if my comments are appropriate, so you can knock it down. I mean, that hardy board makes sense, and I think it's much better than leaving vinyl siding existing. I had a question about, and I'm sure this is gonna be an expense issue, just in terms of it being a historic neighborhood, the wrapping around brick, you know, even possibly veneer, like even, you know, cutting bricks in half and trying to apply it to the bottom, you know, area where it's all, because it's like that white, like so harsh looking, it looks, you know, and it's hard for the neighbors, you know, when they're gonna be then looking at a larger structure, to see that sort of, you know, white harsh color on the bottom. And I just was wondering if that was an expense issue as well, or.
I think like oftentimes there's a question of like kind of where to terminate something.
Right, yeah,
and,
that was my question.
So, and actually, to be honest, I think it's not uncommon for like colonial structural actually to have the brick just be on the facade and not turn the corner. I mean, for what it's worth, the neighboring house, I actually should have checked if it's contributing or not, but the neighboring house does exactly that. But,
You mean stop at the,
yeah, I can enter this into the record, but it's just a Google Street View. Sure.
Can we mark that as
Sure.
applicant?
yes, thank you.
Also, while we're doing that, the first 3 sheets of the board, did you submit copies of that? Okay.
What do we call it?
A1?
A1. Oh. I'm gonna send some that way. Great, thank you.
And I'm going to mark this A2.
Okay.
There's some extra ones here.
Great.
Can I, I'll let you do that.
These are just the existing conditions.
Okay, great, thank you.
I had a comment too about the front window on the first floor. I know that's probably an existing window that you're maybe maintaining. I don't know if you're replacing it, but, you know, the proportion felt off, you know, it being smaller than the one above it, you know, in that space. I'm just looking at it from a design perspective. And then the other question I was gonna ask you, if you were wrapping the corbel, I think they're corbels of the dentals you referred to around, under the eaves, in the back. No, I mean on the side, I'm sorry, on the side for the neighbors, so like it was less, you know, another detail to, you know, make it more appealing to have a large house, you know, towering next to you.
Yeah, we weren't initially considering it. We were kind of trying to focus the energies towards the front, but it's a reasonable comment.
Yeah, and then on the carport, are you guys reconstructing that in the existing format? Like I noticed that you have some lattice work detail. They look like they're maybe in vinyl to cover the side of the carport on the other neighbor's side of the house.
We weren't really proposing to do kind of work to the carport.
Okay, so I was gonna just stay the same. That's
Before
all
we
I
get
have.
any further, we're gonna mark the print you just received as
A2.
A2.
Oh, thank you. Is this for me? Okay, okay,
Um,
sorry.
So just clarification, you just gave us existing structure.
You know what? We mistakenly didn't include those 3 sheets in the PDF that we submitted,
Okay.
and I just wanted to present them today and just make sure you had them.
Great, and can we please get a full set of construction copy when have you already done the construction?
No, we were waiting for your review, and then we'll, if pending that, we would then proceed with construction documents.
Wonderful, thank you. Just homework here, just.
No, of course.
So cleaning up a little. Okay, anyone else? Any comments?
Oh, I have one more I forgot. Is the AC allowed to be on a platform in the back? Are you doing anything about that? Like it's attached to the side of the house? And it's existing right now?
We weren't proposing to change the AC units as they exist.
Because it's elevated, like it's not like on the ground, I think.
Okay, sorry, I
I
don't
don't
remember
know
that
if the code, I
specific.
think the code is, it needs to be on the ground, I thought. That's what, I just wanted to ask that.
I know that if we do any additional AC units to cover the second story, which we probably will need to, we'll certainly be in compliant with we'll set them up in a compliant way.
Excellent. Anyone else? Great. Do we have anyone for the open meeting or in the audience? No neighbors, no nothing? Okay. So I think at this point, you're looking for us to approve, this isn't a conceptual, right? So you're asking us to approve it this evening
Yes.
with then construction documents that we will receive at.
Yes, exactly. And I think Barton had mentioned that it would be conditioned on receiving the construction documents when they're submitted.
Okay. Perfect. So do I hear a motion to approve with those conditions of the construction documents?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Perfect. Roll, please. Thank you.
Allison Canfield,
Yes.
Elizabeth Wanga,
Yes.
Christine Best,
Yes.
Venkatesh Chapalavada, Robert Frankel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good
I
luck
appreciate
to
it.
you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank
It
you.
looks beautiful. It's exciting. It's so exciting to do expansion.
Oh, no, I,
Okay.
Venkat, I need Venkat. It's two peach. No, no,
Thank
no.
you.
you could recycle it.
You second.
Oh, do you need another
I
one?
didn't see that rendering of it in my package.
Which one? This one?
It's in
Yeah,
this.
that's right.
This rendering?
Yeah,
We didn't get that.
so you might want to add that as a consideration.
This
Um,
one?
Yeah,
That
not
came
that
in.
one. She,
This one,
It's
he
in
didn't
there.
get this in his packet.
Should have been in your packet.
Did
Yeah.
you flip all the way through the photos?
Yeah, the color one should have been in your packet.
I have, yeah.
It looks,
Did everyone else
it looks
get it?
nice.
Do you want mine?
No, he can have mine.
I just for your legal thing, I'm just letting you know.
Okay, my apologies, we're on this. This is old business, this is application number 602, 141 Forest Drive, block 3004, lot number 3, non-contributing property in the Short Hills Park District by Custom Building Group LLC. It's a regulatory application for construction of a rear addition and other property improvements. I believe, were they sworn in last time? Did you?
No.
I don't think we were sworn in.
Okay, perfect. So we're gonna have you sworn in.
Did we get these? Sorry, did we get
Oh,
these
yeah,
documents?
we got, I thought we got that in the packet. It's, like, here, I have it on the floor. It's like,
I only have Barton's
talking about Forest Drive?
report.
we're talking
Yes,
about Forest Drive? Yeah, I have drawings. that was- I got sent,
yeah.
the certificate of appropriate. It's for
Do you have
141.
additional drawings?
You can have
or-
mine.
Okay.
Do you need additional drawings?
Is that the last time?
I'm not sure why,
These are from the last time?
who didn't.
Oh, I
I
think this
have
was
a set
this
from the last time.
It was from
Yeah.
the last,
Oh,
I
it's
took it out of the
the
last.
Oh, okay.
I can
didn't-
share
Last
no, that's
thing,
fine.
yeah, I didn't put them like this, so we can look at them together.
The note.
So,
Yeah.
I'm like.
So I'd like to share with people that aren't familiar with this particular
here on that
house. So, Robert, I think you're,
I mean.
I have a copy of the drawings that you should
yeah,
have.
this is just new.
Photos?
Yeah. Van Cat, would you like to see these?
That's for them.
For this one?
It's okay.
Okay, perfect, okay. Give that back to you. So let's get you sworn in so you can proceed. How's that?
Great.
If you could state your name for the record, please.
Mark Marion,
Can you spell your last name, please?
M-A-R-I-O-N.
Okay, and do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, and what is your relationship to the application?
I'm an architect, their architect.
Okay, and,
Licensed architect, in good standing, state of New Jersey. I've spoken before dozens of boards, mostly in Somerset County.
okay.
Great. So we will proceed, and again, my apologies, I didn't mean to skip you. You were under old business.
Yeah.
So please forgive me.
It's okay.
Thank you.
So we're looking to put a small addition to the rear of 141 Forest Drive. It's a 2.5-story colonial house. It's brick, mostly brick. There is some rough edge siding in the rear. It's, I don't know the history of the house, to be honest with you, but it's gutted completely on the inside. And so we're doing some internal renovations, and we're adding about 400 square feet out the back. Let me see pictures, I can show them. This is the front of the house, if anybody's. It's a 2-story brick. It has 4 chimneys, which are remaining. Basically, we are not changing the front at all. We're keeping it as is. It does have a wood roof. It's pretty old. Over the garage on this side, there are 3 gabled dormers. Just walk a square around. This is on the garage side also. These were submitted. You can see the double chimney with the window upstairs, and that's kind of quite nice. This is the rear of the garage. They're mimicking the 3 dormers out the back. Or they did. This is the kitchen here area. It's quite small, and the rest of the 2-story house is right on this picture. There's a low roof that runs all the way across the back with siding above. The dormers and this one section is the only place with the rough edge siding. And the 3 dormers up in the attic, which is habitable. And this is really the only change where we are changing is this rear elevation.
Okay.
And this would be the left side elevation, and it's just a big brick wall, 2 chimneys, and that's not changing either. So the picture's probably better than my drawings in terms of existing conditions. On the first floor, I don't know if you don't have the drawings, is that correct?
You guys I can pass these around, or do you want, people want to walk up and look
We
at them?
got them last, we
Yeah, we
kind
got
of
them.
moved it to this month, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of us, this is the 3rd time we've seen
Yeah.
this house, so some
Yeah.
of us are very familiar
Oh, great.
with the house. So you can just walk through with
Right.
us.
We're rearranging, the downstairs is staying basically the same. We're putting a small addition, a couple hundred square feet in the kitchen area and the breakfast area, pushing that out the back. We're also going to make the great room 2 stories, so we're removing actually some square footage there, and that's part of the addition on the 2nd floor. Keeping basically the stairs and entry as they are, but on this level, there'll be a guest room and a private bath, and there'll also be a powder room, and a dining room, a kitchen breakfast area, and a nice mud room, which is there already, and a little push out into this existing 3-car garage. Pretty minor on this floor. The 2nd floor, there's 3 bedrooms. We're removing one of the bedrooms to make that 2 stories. There's 2 baths. We are adding a laundry upstairs, and we're moving that up. That's part of one of the additions upstairs. And the master suite, we are pushing out the back, combining those 3 dormers on the rear of the garage into like a shed dormer with a very large gable out the back. And but the master bedroom is, we think, looks like it was there, and the bathroom is roughly where, from what you can tell from leftover plumbing.
Okay.
Really, the main drawing, would be the last one, page A6, shows the rear. So this element right here is kind of like a double gable, which is going to penetrate through that low roof that runs across. And we're going to push that up, going to match the brick, keeping the dormers in the attic. Over here is the major change where we're pushing out the back to add more square footage in the master suite, see the bathroom. This is where the master bedroom would be. And a little bit of a change right in this area to widen out the kitchen. It's quite narrow. And that is really the meat of the project, is the rear.
Great.
Yes. Where we are replacing the siding, we've got some rough edge siding we can use. We are using a wood roof to match the existing, where we need to patch it in. And windows to match. They're double hunks primarily. We do have some casement windows in the master bedroom that we kind of need to use to get egress, because they open larger.
Right. And that's at the back of the house.
That's also in the back of the house. All the windows are in fairly good condition on the front and the sides, so that we're basically keeping all the existing windows that we're not touching.
Wonderful. You saw the recommendations of Barton's in his report.
Yes.
I think there were a couple of things that the construction drawings, again, like our last application, if this application is approved as is tonight, that will be something that we would need to have.
That's not a problem.
Also, even though we don't have jurisdiction over paint colors, I think you know to the left of this house is a very historic home.
Right. There's some beautiful homes.
Oh. Great.
Yeah, we're gonna match.
Okay. Again, it was really important that, you know, that neighborhood and what it's setting by, not that your house isn't important, it is. And I first want to thank you myself for you not coming in and either wanting to tear it down or build it into something that, you know, it was already quite large and quite beautiful as it is. So we so appreciate that for sure.
Just trying to modernize the inside.
Right, so thank you. Like I said, it came in front of us, but before, and they wanted to change it a lot. So thank you very much. I think that's it. So now if any of my board members have any questions or comments on this application? No? But very well done. So thank you. Anyone in the audience? Since I can't see behind you.
That little mouse.
Oh, right. So I think we're ready to vote. So do I hear a motion to approve with the conditions, and that is the construction drawings, so it's not official until we get a copy of those. So do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second. Robert, and Elizabeth second. Okay, roll.
Allison Canfield,
Yes.
Elizabeth Wanga,
Yes.
Christine Best,
Yes.
Venkatesh Chakulavada,
Yes.
Robert Frankel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you again. Can't wait to see it all done.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Just real quickly, in front of you, I gave a copy of, just some housekeeping here, of a letter that will go out to everyone again,
Oh.
as it did in the past. We've had a lot of turnover of new people, new, you know, in homes. So again, we just want to let them know that they're in a historic district. Again, when they read the ordinances, it does stand out, new roof, new siding, you know, that does require us to do a minor work review and approve it, so.
Oh, yeah, there's another one out.
It's hard to monitor, so I'd like your suggestion if you think there's any changes that need to be made to
Okay.
this document. So next
Is this
month.
it? This is the document?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
sorry.
next month, I'm hoping if you have any suggestions, to write back to me. And then that way we can vote on it next month to get it out. But I'd like to try to get it out every year, sometime around January, February, because that's where we see the most turnover of real estate. And we just don't want them to do a spring cleanup and put on a new roof and siding and not know that they're in a historic district, okay?
Yeah, that's horrible.
Is it
So-
going out to everybody in town, or is it the
No,
one who
just-
are contributing
Just those that are in a historic districts.
in the
I live
district?
in a historic
Yes.
district.
Yes, so thank you for that.
Even if the house is not historic in the district?
Even if it's not
Yeah.
designated, it's still in the district.
Because they can't just put any roof on, like, if it's non-contributing. There's still some,
There's a lot of
Qualifications,
leeway
yeah,
if they're
yeah.
not contributing. So it's only the contributing houses, but because it's represented as the Wyoming district or the Short Hills district, and again, that minor work review only takes about a week. right? So.
Oh, yeah, it's
We
fast.
review it, it goes out, and it's approved on those applications, so. And I'm tired of driving through the neighborhood, not on purpose, but seeing the whole house being reconstructed, knowing it's in a historic district. So I think we should probably do this on a more regular basis.
Yeah, the
So,
only thing I would like to see more as a definition is the term of contributing, non-contributing, I'm not even
oh,
part
so a
of that.
definition of
So-
that?
So
Yeah, that's a
what
good idea.
their legal rights are.
Okay.
Given that situation, because this letter blanket tells nobody can do anything in their house, which is not the case.
No. So,
Well, no, if they're, even if they're non-contributing, they still have to,
yes, they
they
still
still have to, they
get
still have to comply
approved,
with it.
but they don't, they think that, I understand what you're saying. They think that they're gonna be restricted and have to come in front of the board and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you look at the language and maybe
Yeah,
we
we
could
can-
work
Yeah.
on that together?
And also define the types of properties and what it means as a homeowner.
I will tell you though, we have been limited to a one-page by the town, so
Could be
I,
front and back.
I got as tiny as I could the last time. So with that in mind,
You're gonna
let's
send a
see
pair of
how-
glasses out,
I
readers.
think information is very important for
Me too,
homeowners.
me too.
It's not the real estate of the page,
Right.
it's what their entitlement.
I mean,
is.
it maybe we have to bullet point it, made it, like, you know,
Yeah, like non-contributing, just like have a column, like non-contributing versus
Or just
contributing.
refer them to the
Yeah.
website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could do a link where they could go, you know, on the website and do it that way. I know that doesn't always work.
Yeah. I like to do it on a piece of paper.
It's a little more difficult, but we've got an expert here who's gonna help us figure out if we
We
can,
will see what we can do in very
agree
tiny
on
print.
in
Yeah.
very
People know it's
tiny
clear
print
cut.
that I can't read,
I would almost make it
even
less.
with my glasses.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah,
but I
just
agree,
people know what they're-
if we can do this on more than one page. So
It looks,
Oh.
to me, it looks a little bit like too much information already, to be honest. Like,
I
if
agree.
if you
We
got
could
that,
take
would you
some
even
out
read that whole
and-
thing?
yeah, I agree. No,
Do
no,
real,
look,
do real estate brokers, are they required by law to notify somebody, like, they don't do it, right?
Well,
If
you
somebody's
know,
moving, buying, and
we
like, looking at
ju-
historic property?
yeah.
I would like to see that being adopted, yeah.
Right now, I just
So-
talked to Alex
Yeah.
about this. We're working on getting Barton so he could offer accreditation, you know, the credits for the realtors. You know, they have to have so many credits per
Well, that's a
year
good
or
idea.
something. So Alex said that we could review that to see if we can get Barton accredited, and then he'll be invited, or he'll hold seminars for realtors, you know, on that piece.
So on that note, the cost of everything is going up. It's going to
Yes.
go further up.
Yes,
The owners of historic home are in any way associated to it. They have to spend more than a regular homeowner. There has to be some kind of, we as a historic preservation, if you're gonna make them go through all this, we should give them something back from the town for being stewards.
and we're working
There
on
is-
that
there
too.
is- That's a very, very important thing.
Well,
you know.
glad you mentioned this, because what we're trying to do is see, right now Westfield, and there's another town that gives tax credits. So if you,
Oh,
if you make an improvement to your home, it's calculated over a period of so many years. So maybe we can sit down, because I've been trying to bring this forward. And now maybe timing
To
is
your point
perfect.
where we talked about, that's one way to volunteer more people to be part of that
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
Right? Instead of you telling them, hey, this is historic,
Right,
you know, now come, go through this process.
right.
Instead, you're living in a zone, this is the benefits you will get. Do
By
you want to
the home
enroll
improvement, yeah,
to be, by yourself, volunteer?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna send you Westfield's, anyone else who wants to be copied on this too, but Westfield, and there's another town that it's been successful.
I would just
And
like to know, just so I educate myself, that's
Yeah.
all. But
Yeah.
I don't need
Yeah.
to be part of it.
So,
Definitely, this is a lot of, you know, heavy lifting on homeowners' part,
yeah,
you know, being part of historic buildings.
yes and no,
They need
I
to be-
mean, depends. There, we've certainly there's new materials that people can use versus, you know, real
But the
slaves or
process that they
this or
have to
that.
go
Oh,
through
sure, sure,
compared to a non-historic district.
But
right.
you also know that all your neighbors have to have their houses to that same level, so it probably
Yeah,
increases the value of your home
but I
to a
think
degree.
whether they're
Yeah.
contributing or
There's not to say.
non-contributing, if they're in the district, to have some kind of, if you're making a home improvement, it encourages people not to fear historic districts,
Yeah.
because it's kind of somewhat,
No, you give them
Balanced
incentive, they
out.
volunteer to do more,
yeah,
right?
yeah, thank
Even
you.
which is a bigger.
So you and me, we're gonna be advocates for this. Dave,
Give some
watch
and you
out.
take some.
Dave's on the TC, so we're gonna be talking to him.
It could be like the open space tax. We can
Yeah.
do it.
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you. Okay.
To go back to your question really, about disclosures, so sellers, homeowners, when you're selling your house, you have to disclose that
that
you're
it's historic?
in,
Oh.
you're in a historic district,
Okay.
because you know that there are these restrictions on the property.
Gotcha.
Um,
So then people know
what
when
the
they're buying.
realtors are required to disclose, if they know about it, I'm pretty sure they're supposed to disclose it as well.
Okay.
What people actually disclose. But yeah, typically buyers know they're buying in a historic district, and if they're not willing to take on the responsibility, they're not even looking.
Yeah.
There is ordinance on non-historic district about demolishing houses.
I'm sorry?
There is an ordinance about demolishing houses that is not in historic district, which was passed last year.
No, they're in a
That
historic
was historic,
district.
I think.
So,
Are you sure?
even
It
though
was-
they're
it was
not,
even the master plan.
Right.
It was referring to the master plan, not to
Even-
the.
even if they're a non-contributing property, like for instance, the property that just
not
came
the
in front of
district
us.
I'm talking about, like Marywood, Nottingham Hill,
No.
you could demolish houses there?
Mhm.
You sure about it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'd like to figure out how to stop that, but yeah, you can right now, so. But it is what it is. But we'll talk more. So let's adjourn this meeting so everybody can go home. So, I move to adjourn. Do I have,
Second.
yay. I don't have a gavel. They don't trust me anymore with a.
Oh, did you crack the table?
Oh, great. And I didn't bring my
Oh, I
meat.
didn't know who was getting it.
We're gonna end the video, it takes a little longer. Okay,